Shalom, I'm Brother Rael from Reyahnited Soul, and in this video, I'm going to revisit a discussion that I posted back in July of 2019 titled After the 400-Year Prophecy, and highlight what has transpired since then. So, let us nourish our soul with scripture that we may reunite with the Most High, the Elohim of Yisrael. All scriptures will be read verbatim from the King James Version Bible. Now, let's get right into it. I posted my first video discussion for Reyahnited Soul channel back in July of 2019. The discussion titled After the 400-Year Prophecy was actually my third video discussion posted on this channel. Little did we know back then in July of 2019 that today we would be facing a worldwide pandemic of this magnitude. Back in July of 2019, there was a lot of talk and excitement about the 400-year mark that so-called black people were brought to the United States as slaves. Yeah, there was a lot of hype about the end of our captivity according to Genesis chapter 15, verse 13, and I read. And he said unto Abram, Know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them for 400 years. So, for those who may not know, the transatlantic slave trade was that prophetic event spoken of in Genesis chapter 15, verse 13. From 1619 to 1865, the so-called black people served this nation as slaves, and once supposedly freed in 1865, continued to be afflicted daily and persecuted with impunity. Now, fast forward to the summer of 2019. There were many people in the woke community expecting to see some kind of change. And when there was no visible change, well, you can imagine many were disappointed. And of course, you had the mockers and naysayers emboldened to take their jabs at us on social media, to poke fun at us, asking what happened. 2019 pretty much went uneventful for the most part regarding the ending of our captivity. Then came the beginning of 2020. Things immediately changed to take shape on the world stage, something many countries were not prepared for. And when I say the beginning of 2020, I'm not referring to the month of January of the Gregorian calendar. No, not at all. For the Most High's people, the Passover marks the first month of the year according to Exodus chapter 12, verses 1 through 2. And on March 19, 2020, California was the first state to begin issuing statewide stay-at-home orders due to the pandemic. Businesses, schools, churches, and major sporting events shut down. Record unemployment, worldwide protests and riots. 2020 has been a wild ride ever since, with a record-breaking hurricane season in the Gulf Coast and catastrophic firestorms scorching across the western United States. And also record-breaking loss of life due to the pandemic. Life as we know it, life as the world knows it, has changed significantly. So what does all this have to do with the 400-year prophecy? Well, I just read Genesis chapter 15, verse 13, which speaks about the 400 years of affliction, which is in fact well recorded and documented. Nobody of sound mind can deny it. Now, when we read the next scripture, verse 14, it may help some people to better understand what we now may be witnessing. Let's go to it. Genesis chapter 15, verse 14, and I read. And also that nation whom they shall serve will I judge, and afterwards shall they come out with great substance. That nation whom they serve will the Most High judge. Now, can all this, what we've been seeing in 2020, be just a coincidence? Or are we actually witnessing prophetic judgment being fulfilled? If this is the prophecy of judgment spoken of in Genesis chapter 15, verse 14, how are you prepared to handle it? From the first stay-at-home order in March 2020, we're 9 months into this pandemic. People are actually waiting for this to blow over and get back to normal. Normal being what exactly? Systematic racism? If this is prophetic judgment we're seeing, there's no going back to what you knew as normal. Now the question is, where do we go from here? How will you handle what's coming? We have 3 biblical accounts of nations, powerful nations used to enslave the Most High's people: Egypt, Assyria, and Babylon. Now, many know the story of Moshe and what became of Pharaoh. Not a happy ending for Pharaoh. But many may not be aware of the Assyrians and the Babylonians and how the Most High punished them after they enslaved his people. The Assyrians took the northern kingdom of Yasrael out of their land, which was Samaria, and enslaved them. And the northern kingdom did not return to the land. They are the 10 lost tribes to this day. Afterwards, the Babylonians enslaved the southern kingdom of Yehuda, which was the 70-year Babylonian captivity. Now, both Assyria and Babylon, who were powerful nations, had to answer to the Most High for their transgressions against his people. Let's go to Isaiah chapter 10, verse 11 through 13, and I read, "Shall I not, as I have done unto Samaria and her idols, so do to Jerusalem and her idols? Wherefore it shall come to pass, that when the Lord hath performed his whole work upon Mount Zion and on Jerusalem, I will punish the fruit of the stout heart of the king of Assyria, and the glory of his high looks. For he saith, By the strength of my hand I have done it, and by my wisdom, for I am prudent, and I have removed the bounds of the people, and have robbed their treasures, and I have put down the inhabitants like a valiant man." As you can see in verse 13, the arrogance of the king of Assyria. He thought by his own strength and wisdom was he able to enslave the Most High's people, believing that he had the power to afflict the Most High's people without being permitted to do so. That arrogance brought the Most High's wrath upon him. Americans also have that same air of arrogance as did the king of Assyria. America prides itself in its ability to enslave, afflict, and control under the guise of law and order the so-called black people. America, too, will answer to the Most High for their arrogance. Now, let's see what the Most High said about Babylon according to Jeremiah chapter 50, verses 17 through 18, and I read, "Israel is a scattered sheep. The lions have driven him away. First the king of Assyria hath devoured him, and last this Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, hath broken his bones. Therefore saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, Behold, I will punish the king of Babylon and his land, as I have punished the king of Assyria." No nation after Egypt, after the covenant was made, has afflicted the Most High's people without paying a heavy debt. America has a heavy debt to pay the Most High, for they feasted greedily upon his people for the past 400 years. Let me repeat that. They feasted greedily upon his people for the past 400 years, sparing not women, children, or the elderly. Having picnics and taking group photos, smiling joyfully, as a child of the Most High's battered body swung from a tree in the background. The Most High made them take those photos so that their descendants who are alive today will understand the blood debt that is owed at their expense. Best believe the Most High has calculated the debt owed and will exact judgment. Now, revisiting my original discussion, after the 400-year prophecy that I posted in July 2019, I mentioned that although the Most High's people are scattered to the four corners of the earth, the affliction of the United States was the most cruel in its enslavement and systematic social injustice of the Most High's people. I also mentioned in this discussion, at around the 10-minute and 44-second mark, that a massive reaping of lives would take place that could not be blamed on catastrophic weather or man. Now, if we look at the worldwide pandemic today, we can clearly see which nation is being hit the hardest as of December 2020. The United States has far surpassed lives lost to the pandemic of any other nation. I do not take this as a coincidence or random circumstance. The Most High always makes good on His word. His word will not return to Him void. And we know that judgment is coming. The question is, are we witnessing the beginning of that Old Testament prophetic judgment? I say Old Testament prophetic judgment because the New Testament has a different prophetic narrative. And if you're looking for New Testament prophetic signs, you may in fact miss the Old Testament prophetic signs. Let's be very clear. The Most High dictates prophecy by speaking it into existence. And if the Most High doesn't speak in the New Testament, why then would His people believe that there's such a thing as New Testament prophecy? Let me repeat that. If the Most High doesn't speak in the New Testament, why then would His people believe that there's such a thing as New Testament prophecy? As a matter of fact, according to New Testament doctrine, churches should be on the front lines healing people and defeating this pandemic. But then again, the pandemic shut the churches down. Darn the luck. And why isn't anyone fighting to open these churches up so they can defeat this pandemic? I'm just asking. We as a people need to get it through our heads that every time we hear someone use the word God, it doesn't always mean that they're speaking of the Most High. There are all sorts of people in the world worshiping all sorts of different gods. And with that being said, when a majority of our people hear someone mentioning the word God, they immediately assume it's the Most High that the person is referring to. Having that kind of naive perspective of this world is quite hazardous, and to be honest, quite foolish. But when you're indoctrinated into the New Testament doctrine as a naive child, you will tend to believe that there are many nations of the world kumbayaing with the Most High and His people. And that's just not the case. When you study the Tanakh or the Old Testament scriptures, you'll understand that there's no nation outside of the 12 tribes of Yisrael that worship the Most High. Each nation of people had their own particular gods and goddesses that they worshipped. And in a world filled with hate, perversion, and injustice, what gives you the impression that many nations are now worshiping the Most High? In the Old Testament, you had strangers like Ruth the Moabite, as in the book of Ruth, who clave to the Most High's people and claimed the Most High as their Elohim. Yes, there are strangers who cleave to the Most High's people and worship the Most High. But that did not occur with entire nations. There were nations who knew of the Most High and feared His power, but neither did they worship Him as a nation. To be clear, the word God is a general term. Never assume that it means the Most High. To some New Testament believers, Jesus is God. And how do you respond to that? By saying, no, He's not? When you worship something, whatever it may be, that is your God, plain and simple. And Jesus, according to Matthew chapter 2, verse 2, and Matthew chapter 28, verse 9, was worshipped in the New Testament. So, when they tell you that Jesus is their God, you may just want to go ahead and believe them and go about your business. There's nothing else to discuss. So here we are, the year 2020, after the 400-year prophecy of Genesis chapter 15, verse 13. Worldwide pandemic, business, school, churches, sporting events shut down, record-breaking unemployment, riots, protests, civil unrest, record-breaking hurricane season, catastrophic firestorms in the western United States, and record-breaking loss of life. At what point do we begin realizing that Genesis chapter 15 verse 14 may be upon us? The judgment phase of this prophetic event. The nation who the Most High people served will he judge. And the Most High always makes good on his word. It's not a matter of if it will happen, but when. To my Torah-believing brothers and sisters out there, are you right with the Most High? Is your household in order? Every member of your household may not be woke or on the same page believing what you believe, but do they respect the order that you have established? Are you prepared to handle what's to come if the Most High turns this judgment up a few more notches in 2021? Do you feel as though you and your household are under his protection? To my New Testament brothers and sisters out there, please reconsider following a doctrine where the Most High is clearly not present in it. A doctrine that proclaims to bring a better covenant with better promises than the Most High provided. A doctrine that instructs you that at the name of the New Testament Messiah, every knee should bow. A doctrine that clearly worships the New Testament Messiah. You have been misled in the land of your captivity. You will be corrected in measure and not left altogether unpunished. Is it your desire to be judged alongside your oppressor for serving your oppressor's God? Brothers and sisters, that time may be upon us. Seek the Most High with all your heart while you still can, and you will find that there's no room left in your heart for worshiping other deities. You will no longer have the desire to do so. To the strangers out there who worships the Most High and cleave to the Most High's people, are you right with the Most High? Is your household in order? Every member of your household may not be on the same page believing what you believe, but do they respect the order that you have established? Are you prepared to handle if the Most High turns this judgment up a few more notches in 2021? And do you feel as though you and your household are under his protection? There's a lot going on, family. Let's not lose our focus on the Most High, our Elohim, who is in control of everything that is going on worldwide. We all long for the end of our captivity. We all long for the Most High to bring judgment to our oppressors. We cannot desire these events to occur while at the same time wishing for things to go back to what some may call normal. And by normal, I mean back to systematic oppression. We must shift our way of thinking from expecting our oppressors to willingly give us what is owed, such as reparations, to believing that the Most High will take from our oppressors what is owed, the beginning of our restoration. Remember, afterward we shall come out with great substance, according to Genesis chapter 15, verse 14, and I read. And also that nation whom they shall serve will I judge, and afterwards shall they come out with great substance. Yes, let us not forget about the great substance afterward. We must be prepared for whatever takes place, however the Most High does it. Only he knows the extent of what is about to transpire as he exacts judgment and retrieve the debt owed. So, no matter what you hear, no matter what you see, keep your trust in the Most High Yah, the great and terrible Elohim of Yah's Israel. The heathen nations of old knew him as terrible for good reason. Let worshiping the Most High be your focus, and moving forward into our covenant inheritance be your desire. In conclusion, this pandemic began gaining attention around the 2020 Passover, and the pandemic has been gaining momentum ever since. Now, reflecting back on what happened with the children of Israel in Egypt during the 10th plague, Moshe instructed them on what to do in order for that plague to pass over their homes. And we are, as the Most High's people, commanded to observe the Passover throughout all generations, according to Exodus chapter 12, verses 12 through 14, and I read, "For I will pass through the land of Egypt this night, and will smite all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast, and against all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgment. I am the Lord. And the blood shall be to you for a token upon the houses where ye are. And when I see the blood, I will pass over you, and the plague shall not be upon you to destroy you when I smite the land of Egypt. And this day shall be unto you for a memorial, and ye shall keep it a feast to the Lord throughout your generations. Ye shall keep it a feast by an ordinance forever." Now ponder this as long as need be. What if all the Most High's people did not get the instructions on how to protect themselves from that 10th plague that swept through Egypt? What if many of them were just too distracted, or too stubborn to listen, or too caught up in mingling with the Egyptians and their traditions? That would have been disastrous for the Most High's people. In addition to being enslaved and mistreated by the Egyptians, they would have suffered the same fate as the Egyptians on that fateful night. And also ponder this as well. Why would the Most High command his people, while being delivered out of their first captivity, to keep the Passover forever? Perhaps because his people would be faced with a similar situation while being delivered out of their last captivity. With that being said, always keep your trust in the Most High. Love him with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. See to it that your household is in line with the word of the Most High as best you can. I thank you for taking the time to watch. Again, I am Rael, your reunited soul brother. And with that, I say to you, Shalom.